Alright guys, here we go. We're going to start off with payroll. This is on page 259. This is a file in Moodle. Please go in and download it if you have not yet. What we're going to figure is all of these blanks, and then we're going to add some more in here. So to figure gross pay, we're going to take our hourly rate times our hours. So equals C7 times D7, hit enter, then we're going to go ahead and fill down. Social Security is based off of your gross pay times a specific rate. So we're going to do equals gross pay times our rate, which is in B3. However, we're going to use an absolute cell reference, so hit F4, enter, and then we're going to go ahead and fill down, but not that far down. Let's see here. We're only going through number 23, not through 53. Taxes, also based off your gross pay. So equals E7 times, our case, we're going to use 15%, enter, fill down. Net pay is your gross pay, so equals E7 minus your Social Security, which is in F7, minus your taxes in G7, then go ahead and fill down. Easy enough so far. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a column for overtime hours. So click on your E, Control Shift plus. We are going to have to use a wrap text on this because, as you can tell, it goes too far around. So add your wrap text. So with this is going to be an if statement. What we want to do is we want to check to see how many hours that the people have worked. So we're going to start off with equals if. And I would highly suggest you look at page 256. It does a great job showing you an example. So equals if, open parenthesis. We want to check our number of hours. So if our number of hours, which is in D7, is greater than 40, we want it to do something specific. And if it's less than that, we want it to do something specific. So here, as you can tell, it's giving us our little cheat sheet. So we're doing our test first. So we're looking at D7, is it greater than 40, comma. If it is true, we want to take our D7 minus 40. So if D7 is greater than 40, is going to do this little piece right here. If it is not greater than 40, so if this is false, we want just to put in a 0. Close your parenthesis, hit enter. Once again, that's equals if. Do your test, so D8 greater than 40. If it's true, we want D8 to subtract 40. If it's false, we want it to put in 0. Go ahead and fill down then. Once again, check out page 256 and 257 for that. For a list of your operators and your functions dealing with less and greater than, check out page 257. So here we go. Now you can see we only have a handful of people that worked overtime hours. Only 3. So what we want to do now is we want to insert another column. So here, if you do insert sheet columns, you can do it that way if you want. You get the little paintbrush, click on the little drop down arrow, and you can do formatting the same as somewhere else. So here, we did formatting the same as the right. What we're going to enter here is overtime pay. Once again, as you can see, we need to wrap our text so it goes on to 2 lines. For our overtime pay, we're going to do a simple formula to figure out 1.5 times the pay rate based on the number of hours. So equals our number of hours times, parenthesis, our rate times 1.5. That gives us time and a half of the rate for any overtime hours they have worked. Go ahead and hit enter, and I'll show you if they had any overtime pay. Go ahead, fill it down. We're now looking at step number 9. So we have to have a new gross pay formula because now we have some overtime pay that we have to include here. And actually, we have a couple columns in the wrong places. Our gross pay and overtime pay are mixed up. This is an easy fix. Highlight the column. I would suggest you use Control X to cut it, paste it into another column, and then it tells you an error. So, highlight your information, Control X, somewhere else, paste. Then you can go ahead, cut and paste the stuff into the right places. My apologies for that mistake. It does happen. Easy fixes though, that's why we have copy paste. So now what we're going to do, in G7 we're going to create a new gross pay formula. This is going to be an if statement. So equals if open parenthesis. We're going to check our D7 again. So if it is less than or equal to 40, that is our test, we're going to put in a comma. We are going to take C7 times D7. That way it's just our regular hours. However, if we have more than 40 hours, we have to take our C7 times 40 plus F7, because that was our overtime pay. Go ahead and close parentheses, hit enter, then fill it down. And once again, we're going too far. That changes all of your formulas for Social Security and taxes. As you can tell, for those people who had overtime, it did adjust those dollar amounts. Please, once again, check out pages 259 to 260 to make sure things are working the right way. If something is off, go back in, double check your work. You may have to print some large worksheets. In the business world, this worksheet in particular is still considered small. And if you haven't, I just saw this, B3 is supposed to be at 6% now. So if you need to change it, please go ahead and change it. Anyway, in the business world, this is a small worksheet. Sometimes you do have larger ones. If you want to print these, and this is one of your review questions, it talks about printing on the wider part of the paper. In my case, I cannot show you the print preview because I do not have a printer hooked up to this machine, but remember, it's just under page layout. Change your orientation to landscape, and then you can see from there. And once again, you can't do page layout either because no printer hooked up, but then you can see how that has changed. You guys are able to see that on your machines. Alright, freshmen, we're going to start on page 262 now. What we're going to look at is the document called loan. We are looking at, they call it the PMT formula. What this is, it figures out equal periodic payments for an installment loan. An installment loan would be like a car payment. You pay the same exact amount for each month until it's paid off. Page 261 shows you examples of those. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table, and it's going to show the principal amount that is still due, how much of the payment goes to interest, how much goes to principal, and how much is still owed. The principal amount is just the amount that was borrowed. Interest is how much extra you have to pay for borrowing that money. So if you haven't already opened up the document loan within your Moodle files, this should be like the 4th or 5th document that you've opened. You're going to go down to cell B3, and you're going to enter 7%. If you're following along, this is on page 262. For a number of payments, we need to figure out how long we're paying on. In this case, it's a 30-year loan, and we know there's 12 months in a year, so you can do 30 times 12. Some of you will already know that it's 360. Others, that's just easier for you to figure. The principal amount, or the amount that's going to be borrowed, is $200,000. So make sure that is formatted as currency. Remember, that's up on your home tab. And we don't need any decimal places on this specific one. So our monthly payment, this is where we're going to use the PMT function. So equals PMT. And as you can see from the pop-up balloon, tells you it calculates payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant rate. So equals PMT, open parentheses. You're going to use your interest rate. Interest rates are always shown for 1 year. So we have to take our rate, divide by 12. B3 divide by 12. We're going to put in a comma. We're going to take it times our number of payments. So NPER, that's number of periods. So in this case, you can see number of payments, that's 360. So click on B4, comma, and now we need a minus. This is just a requirement. You're just going to have to know it has to go in there. Our principal, which is B5. Go ahead, close your parenthesis, hit enter, and as you can see, our monthly payment would be over $1,300. To find our total amount paid, this is going to be our total payment, so our $1,330 times our number of payments, which is 360, enter. Total interest is going to be our total amount we paid minus our principal. Then just hit enter. And you can tell it figured it for us. So in this particular case, this was probably a home loan, or also known as a mortgage. So now what we're going to do, we're going to figure out how much of our payments go to which places. So this is payment number 1. Our principal amount is going to equal B5 because that's how much we borrowed. Paid to interest. This is going to be our equal B13, so our principal amount, times, and we're going to open our parenthesis, our rate, and we're going to change that to an absolute cell reference with our F4 key, divide by 12, close your parenthesis. So that shows us of our 1,330, 1,166 is going to go to our interest. So our paid to principal amount, we're going to do our equal. We are going to then use our cell reference of our monthly payment, our B7, minus our interest amount. And B7 we can create as an absolute cell reference. So $163 is going to be going to our principal. And then finally, in cell E, we want to know what our new principal amount owed is. So equals principal minus our paid to principal, hit enter. So that's what our new principal owed is. To figure our next payment, so payment number 2, we're going to do equals our principal owed. Then our paid to interest is going to be just like before. So what we can do is fill it down. Fill down your next one. Oops, I went too far on that. Fill down your next one. If we continue down like that, then you can see how it changes over time. That's all there is to these. You guys know how to add in your headers and footers, so we will not go through that part. If we would change this to 8%, we can even change this to a different number of payments, different numbers here, and you can see how that changes also, just because of our use of cell references. So we are going to pause here, and then there will be a third video finishing up this chapter. We'll talk to you in a couple moments.